You're listening to Cat Tales.
You're listening to Cat Tales, and I'm Cat. When Enuff Z'Nuff finally did say Enuff Z'Nuff to lead singer Donnie Vie, it looked like it was all over for the man who had spent 25 years crafting melodic power pop and rock songs for the band that had been the darlings of the critics with their debut release. The band's history had been punctuated by drug-induced sabotage, inglorious failure, premature death and bankruptcy, so the acrimonious dissolution of the brotherhood between Donnie and Chip Z'Nuff should have marked the end. But Enuff Z'Nuff have continued on their way without Donnie, who, like the proverbial phoenix, has risen from the ashes to release Beautiful Things, arguably the best album of his career to date. We chat about life after the band, why he's had more downs than ups, and the day he woke up in a morgue. This is the one with Donnie Vie.
Oh, awesome. Why I'm up this early.
Oh, dear. It's 10 o'clock there, I understand, in windy Chicago.
Yeah, right in the Chicago area. Just a little suburb of it. But, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Is it windy? I think people say it's windy in Chicago. Is it actually windy?
That's just a kind of a saying, you know what I mean? Just like the English have bad food and bad teeth, you know, it's just a saying. And I'm coming down with something. It's not feeling so well, but I went to bed early last night, so I woke up too early, and then I've had this knowing I was going to do this. I could not lay back down because then I would have never woke up or been just a crabby fuckhead when I did it, and there's no point in doing them that. So here, hold on, I gotta do these in the garage because so I can smoke cigarettes. But I have to, the lawn maintenance, the lawn service is right outside right now. Of course they are, with all their machines and mowers and all that bullshit. So I just had to shut the door.
Oh, it's sod's law.
I'll live.
You'll live, bless you.
It could be worse. I could have a job like them out there.
Well, this is it, isn't it?
8:30 in the fucking morning, they're out there mowing lawns and shit, which means they had to have gotten up 2 hours before that. Fuck that.
Yeah, that's not good, is it, really? Yeah, so count your blessings. That's what I say.
It can always be worse. My grandpa would always say, at least you're not getting raped in the face.
What a great saying. I mean, you can't disagree, can you?
No, there's always can be worse.
It can. But things are pretty good with you at the moment because you've been through ups and downs, haven't you, over your time in the industry?
Yeah, probably just far more downs than ups. But you know, when you have like such a great up in the very beginning that everything basically after that is down. You know what I mean? It's just depending on the level of down at the time being that it is, you know, because that's what, you know, when they say is it's better to have made it and then lost it or to have never made it at all. Well, that's a tough question, you know what I mean? But to have made it and lost it is you can still sustain if you work hard enough to continue to be your line of work. You know what I mean? If you never made it there, you don't know what you lost, you know, and so it's either, you know, they can go either way. It's like the chicken or the egg.
That's true. It's funny you should say that because I speak to a lot of people, as you know, and they say there's good and bad in difference. You know, when you've made it big, you've got the Super Trooper lights and you've got the fan club and you've got all this going on. But then afterwards, when it's all calmed down, sometimes that's the best experiences they've had. Do you think that's a load of bull, or do you think that's actually right?
No, it is true because you know, there's all different reasons why some certain artists could hit it at one time, and initially in the beginning of their careers, just for that, you know, it doesn't even mean that they're that great of an artist or anything. It's just the planets aligned for them. They were on the right label at the right time with the right song and the right thing going on, or frame of mind that, you know, that the world accepted, or this and that, or kicked into. There was something else not going on at that time, anything. But afterwards, you know, that's very few. When it happens, like with us, it was so quickly. It happened so fast. It was so young. It went up that you didn't really even get to know anything about it. You had no experience. You had no real knowledge of it, and also you you didn't even realize it was happening till after it happened. You know what I mean? And you're like, well, Jesus, you know, you're so busy and you're this and that. And you don't realize until later, once that's not happening to that magnitude, that happened as big as it did. You know what I mean?
I do entirely.
But what you do keep is when you do manage to keep you know, as small or whatever it could be of a fan base that where there's ones that you know, to let you know that, I mean, it affected them so much that to some of them that they said it meant the difference of their life or their death. You know what I mean? In certain situations, which I've gotten quite a few, enough of those to make that are worth, you know, all the money in the world. Because how can you put a price on it? You know, but when you keep that base, and they'll follow you into oblivion, they'll follow you anywhere, and they'll find you. You know, that's very rewarding. It gives you a whole different sense of purpose about the whole thing that you're doing. You know, it's like you can find a deeper meaning or a deeper purpose in what you're doing than just to make the money and just for yourself. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. And it's almost like when you're, as you were saying there, the rise of Enuff Z'Nuff was like momentous, wasn't it? So it's almost like makes your head spin at the time, and it doesn't even feel real till afterwards. But to hear that you've actually made a difference to people's lives, looking back, that sounds to me, from what you're saying there, the most important thing.
For me, it is, because fame and fortune was never my you know, my focus. You know, I mean, you always think. I mean, for me, it was what my dream, to make my dream come true. It was the things that I just music did so much for me, because I had, you know, really fucked up childhood and stuff, and it was a lonely thing and stuff, and certain things made such a difference to me. It impacted my life so much that my goal and my dream was to be able to, if I could do that, something I did had that effect on, you know, was that good that it had that effect on other people. And, you know, and that did happen. You know, money isn't, I've had money and been, you know, far sadder and far, you know, just less quality of life by far than I have, you know, with no money. You know, but it depends on the state. You know, I mean, it's the state of being. You know, I mean, like right now, this is the first time in my life that everything has synced up to where I'm actually peace of mind, and I'm pretty happy and content, and so everything that would happen, you know, beyond what I'm doing would be all bonus, and there's no expectations of any sort, you know.
I suppose that's true. When you get to the control aspect that you've now got in your career, you haven't got the same expectations, have you, or indeed the same kind of pressure, or
the same necessity for it. Because of just the state of mind, and emotionally and physically and mentally, without being all medicated up, and you know, in everything that comes with your life when you're in that state, like when you're on drugs and alcohol and stuff, life gets a lot darker and uglier, and then you're losing opportunities, you're alienating, and this and that, and so it'll take more to sustain you than it would when you're just going with the flow and just floating with the current, and everything's going okay, and you know, like a single not doing anything or this and that isn't the end of the world. You know what I mean? As opposed to where everything's riding on this next song that or this next little record venture that I need that $10,000 so bad, or the world's going to cave in underneath me, which I've spent a lot of time, you know, under the gun like that, with you know, the shoe ready to drop. Most of my life and my career, you know, you know, after, you know, it's a slow, steady decline or spiral from a certain point, but like I said, you know, I mean, even when I had the money and stuff, I used the same amount of space that I usually take up anyway. Just you know what I mean? I just in my little environment, my little man cave area where I could create be, by myself and things like that. And I'm absolutely content, and I've got like a nice family now, and help, and I'm the best me that I've ever been. So, things it's so much easier, and it's so much, financially I'm bringing in not very much, but enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting old business affairs attended to, and things that let go out beyond control have let just out of control and stuff, and starting to reel some of that shit in, and getting into opportunities where I'm able to, I can afford to discontinue things that are really been hindering me, like, being in Enuff Z'Nuff and things like that. It was creatively, it was, stunting my growth.
Yeah, being in such a successful band, you've got a formula that you have to almost deliver, haven't you? You haven't got any freedom, I guess, and you were like the powerhouse of the writing of that material. So did you feel like it was stifling you? Have you felt like, I'm free, I can go and do whatever I want?
Yeah, the handcuffs, the handicap is off, you know what I mean? It just with somebody else, with the amount of energy and the amount of agenda or whatever of somebody like Chip Z'Nuff is enough to, with the ego and his personal feelings about things and stuff, whether they're right or they're wrong, has so much to do with the creativity, like, where, to the point of sometimes where there'll be something on the record I had no idea was going on that record, that I had nothing even to do with, just had a personal agenda, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Something as small as that, which is big, but that's small in the big picture of things, and now, it's real evident if you listen to what's going on over there now and what I'm churning out, who did what.
Yeah, it's good looking back, isn't it, on people to say, well, I'm no longer part of you, and I can see what my contribution was, and so can everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, well, unfortunately, that was the name brand, so that's easier to get the jobs, as opposed to the solo thing, which the masses, not everybody knows exactly my name. You know what I mean? You see the Enuff Z'Nuff and the logo and stuff like that. It's getting work, but the work it's getting is nothing that I'd be interested in doing anymore anyway.
Well, times move on, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything happens as it's supposed to. You know what I mean?
I do indeed, and I totally agree with you on that. I'm just interested in going back to what you were saying earlier there about the early years and the fact that you felt there was a lot of influence in your life from the musical side that got you through some very difficult times. Do you want to expand on that a little bit for me in terms of like what difficult times were there for you, and which music influenced you the most and gave you comfort? Well,
mostly it got me through, up until the point of the band's success. That's a whole different era for me. That was my own personal, growing up and everything. I had a very rough and unpleasant childhood, all the way up until like the band got its break, which was, I was very, very young then, but it was an unpleasant childhood, and the music, I was very alienated and alone in the world, and no parents, nothing, you know what I mean? And very few friends and stuff, and the music was, I would escape into there, and I basically, to a point of where I lived in that thing of like subconsciously learning, like an education, like I was in school.
Yeah.
And something that you're in school for, that you just completely love, and it affects you in such a positive way. Like, like from the first Beatles record that I heard at like 4 or 5 years old, you know what I mean? And it was just Beatles for quite a while, and subconsciously, outside radio and, Motown came in, shit my mother would listen to. It's like, orchestral stuff where I'm picking that shit up, but it was everything, because there was nothing else.
Yeah, and it's sort of like a mixing pot that you've listened to over the years, and then it all coming into your subliminal and then coming out in your writing later. And some of the things that I've heard there, you said about the Beatles, and I'm not surprised to hear that, because your solo stuff now has got, and immediately for me, it made me think of that kind of era. Was that a deliberate thing for you, or do you think it's just come out in the sort of like your psyche as you've been doing it?
It's well, once I tell you what else is in there, I mean, it's during the first formative years of the creating of Donnie Vie per se, that you're not conscious that you're picking or even focusing or trying to pick up influences. It's all about hearing it and listening to it, and what. Some things you might not even know that you're enjoying, but picking up outside things that are sticking in your mind, and not even necessarily knowing that you're familiar with any of that kind of thing until your next thing you realize you've applied that to what you do. Like Jesus Christ Superstar album or something like that. Andrew Lloyd Webber with all the orchestration and all that stuff was something that I heard a lot when I was young, and didn't even realize that because there's also, once I got a little bit older and I started hearing like the Jackson 5 or Marvin Gaye or the Four Tops and things like that, Stevie Wonder especially, that those things were grabbing me too, but those influences were the same kind of things that influenced like the Beatles and things like, so everything's of a likeness, in the same arena, that just is where I went with it, and that's just in the cards of what I was meant to be, what I was meant to create, and rightfully so. I mean, there's not a million of us that do that can also apply it to a sort of maybe not as self-indulgent way, you know what I mean? But it's an education. You learn just like you learn to see or walk or to fix things or this and that just by the experiences, and you don't realize necessarily what you're picking up. Like you can figure out how to fix something else that you've never worked on before, because you've got an inclination now that you've picked up, experience and education in various ways. I do that as well. I can fix or build anything,
Wow, so you've always got one of those minds that just takes it all in like a little sponge and then puts it all out again when you need it. That's brilliant.
Bittersweet, though, because ignorance is bliss.
Now, that is true.
We used to have Led Zeppelin, Stones, and Beatles, hooking up with girlfriends face to face. I realized my country by an eagle, flying higher, stronger and free. But now it's all another place, and all I wanna do is have understanding, and all I wanna do is bring the good shit back. All I wanna do is be cool with strangers, with these foolish things. If it was up to me, I could save the world. It used to be okay to have a good time. Well, King and Lennon run for the human race. Didn't have to worry about the frost line melting away right in front of your face. But now it's all another place, and all I wanna do is have understanding, and all I wanna do is bring the good shit back. All I wanna do is be cool with strangers, with these foolish days. If it was up to me, I could save the world. Borrowed time, the clock starts
I'm Donnie Vie, formerly of Enuff Z'Nuff, now working on my own. You're listening to Cattails. I'm watching the cattail.
So you've got all those sort of musical influences, but what about your life experiences coming out in your writing as well? Because you've had so many ups and downs, lots of downs, as you say. And before this album was released, it was released last year, but the year before, I understand that you had a really rough time, didn't you? From you almost lost your life and things were going really poorly for you. Has that fed into your writing as well?
Well, the recent single that I released, All My Favorite Things, it did. But as far as putting your life experiences and your knowledge and things, not from just the musical aspect, but lyrically, and that stuff didn't come into play until I actually started to write my own songs, and that was about 15 or 16, and then came the reason or the main thing that drove writing my own songs was emotion and the expression and the desire or need to say something like, it's like a bad girlfriend. That's what started me off on the first writing. And from that point on, I didn't originally set out to connect lyrically to anyone or have that even in mind, because you can hear that in the song New Thing. It's just the stupidest lyrics, but they just, the vowels and syllables work. But I was, young and inexperienced at it. And as I went, it grew with like Fly High Michelle a little bit. And that's like the first real, lyrics or something that had any meaning on the first record. And then Strength went into, you're starting, because, the first record is like the greatest hits up until that point, And Evo, the experiences in my life and everything are the things that my fans tell me that affected them most. But it was like the melodies that hooked them in, that made them listen to the lyrics. And then they listened to the lyrics, and I always put it all out there, whatever I had, as from amateur status up until now. Now I fine tune these lyrics to down to a T.
Yeah,
come a long way with that. For a guy that didn't make it far in school, and he still can't read my handwriting.
Oh, me neither. It's funny, isn't it, how life goes? But that's a great accolade for you, isn't it? I mean, in fact, when you look back at those early years, did you ever expect to be where you are now and to have the history with Enuff Z'Nuff and the hits and everything else that you've done in your life? Looking back, would you ever have dreamt that? Not
is the way that you would look at it and perceive it now. I never, I would never in a million years would I dream, first of all, that I'd would have gotten as far as I did get originally. And then never would I have dreamt that I would be playing in a band with those particular players. Never would I have dreamt that this lyrically I would grow to a point of where I so much affected someone's life and things like that. And I just always been very authentic, very genuine. What you see is what you get. Been very direct. I don't lie. I don't, there's no facade or anything to the point of where I don't know how to play the game very well, like some parasitic sons of bitches that's all they do is know how to play the game and take things that shouldn't even be credited to them, But no, I wouldn't have thought. Who would think that, Who would think one day you're going to rush into a fire to save someone's life? You cannot anticipate something like that. But once it happens, you can look back on it and reflect and say, you can make a lot of sense of things that, you made a left here or a right here in your life where it led to different avenues and roads that you can't anticipate. So later on, you can always start to make sense of even the unpleasant things,
Yeah, and it's almost like learning from them, isn't it? And you think, well, I can see why that happened now because it's actually led to something better. And you don't know that at the time, do you? You just have to hopefully trust that it's going to work out. And somehow it does, doesn't it?
It leads you to where like I look at our whole lives is I've had a peek at the afterlife. I had a small peek at it of because my body had died for a brief couple of minutes and then came back, and so I got a little look at something that most people don't get to see or know is there, that they just have to trust and believe it or have faith or this and that. And I got a peek at that, and knowing that it doesn't end here, knowing that it goes on from here, and the experience that I had, which is impossible to explain or really comprehend. It's just knowing that it's enough that we are kind of imprisoned in these bodies here at this point, and that it does go on after this, which changes everything. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's really fascinating. I know exactly what you mean there. I mean, I haven't had a near-death experience myself, but I have spoken to quite a few people who have, and it is one of those things that gives you perspective on the whole picture, doesn't it?
It absolutely changes everything 100%, and it's not something right off the bat, anybody you try to tell or to persuade or to comfort somebody with it, it's something that's really hard to believe if you haven't personally seen it, like ghosts and spirits and different entities and demons and things like that, which are just something from a movie and something that is any intelligent mind would piece together. That's not possible. You know what I mean? So if I was able to have that kind of influence and really where people actually would listen and believe me and trust what I'm saying, it would change everything for the world, but in which case I would disappear and be killed immediately, because religion is big business.
Now that is true, isn't it, really? So what happened? Just tell my listeners what actually happened to you to actually end up with this experience.
Well, my heart has stopped. My body has died a couple of times. I mean, at one time, I woke up in the morgue, which kind of pissed me off, because what the fuck am I doing? You sure gave it a real good try, you motherfuckers. You sure made sure, like in the old days, you'd have been buried by now, you know what I mean? And but the one time where I experienced it was not in a drug-induced overdose or something like that. I drowned in a golf course lake. It's a long story that involved tomfoolery, that led to that, but as I drowned, it was a different experience where I never lost a conscious awareness through the whole experience, through what happened and where my awareness and where my energy, that people call it a spirit when you label something makes it difficult, but for what it's called, a spirit, I call it my energy, because we're all energy. Everything's energy. It can't be born. It can't die. Yeah. But there was a continued awareness that was growing more aware by the second, to the point of a brief, minute answer to the question, the meaning of life. You know what I mean? And but it's like some people think, even if they believe there's an afterlife, they think that, okay, well, we go somewhere else, but you don't necessarily, we just like an ant or a squirrel or something like that. We're not anything. We're just molecules and shit in the air. But that wasn't true in that time. There was a conscious awareness that I brought with me and brought back, which I don't know if it was an accident that I got a peek at that, or if there was a real good reason that I got a peek at that. But I know that it works for me, because my agenda is always for others, is to paint a new color on people's rainbows, or a rainbow just to begin with, and especially more so as time goes on, and I hear from more people that how greatly I affected, or what I did affected them, but also in the same breath it lets me know, which I've always thought, that with the ease of, it seems, of what I do, and the batting average that I bat with, the quality of the songs that keep getting better by 55 years old, that something else is working with me or through me.
Yeah.
That you know that this is a purpose, and I'm like the antenna. It's my job just to do the physical aspect of it and not fuck it up, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I know exactly it.
yeah, it's a different purpose. And a lot of the bigger artists that really were influential and stuff like that, well, I'll tell you the same thing. It's just, it feels like almost to a point of where you're actually physically working with somebody sometimes.
Yeah, a bit like being the messenger, isn't it? And I suppose now with doing your solo work, you're able to deliver that message, whatever that message may be, whether it's yours or somebody else's or a higher divine spirit or whatever, the universe, let's say. But working through you, you're able to do that.
The complete vision, the complete version of that without it being hindered or handicapped in some way. You know what I mean? It's I have 100%. I see something. I always did, but like for certain reasons, you won't hear it that way. You know, and now that won't happen.
Yeah, and I suppose it also means that you have to get to a certain age to be able to appreciate this experience as well, don't you?
Well, I would say the only reason for that is because it's those many years of experiences and everything that you've gone through and ups and downs and different encounters and things that you've gone through in your life. So had those all happened in a shorter amount of time, you know, the age wouldn't be, but age could also be a factor in where you're at a point where you're mature enough to get a better understanding or have a better grasp of what, not as manic and not as exuberant and stuff. You can get a chance to look and enough of those things that where this happened and that made a difference and this happened and that made a difference. So that's where the age comes into play. Most guys aren't as good of an artist anywhere near when they've reached this many. I mean, over 25 albums I've written and released, and there's 500 songs that never got released that weren't finished or something. So, you know, who the fuck does that? Their best record ever is at 53 or 54 years old.
I know, and people have said this is your best record. I mean, that's the amazing thing, isn't it? That, you know, it must feel really, I would be exuberant to think, I've made this finally to be representative of me, and people are saying this is the best thing they've heard.
How cool is that? You know?
I know, that's amazing.
How cool is that to listen to it and be like, this is the very first. You know, I've made other solo records, but under different conditions, and there was still other things at play. This is the very first effort that I've had to with all of the where I wasn't doing it by myself at home and any other handicaps or whatever, and not other people hindering what I did, and I wasn't under the gun with on the clock, and you know, finances weren't, you know, heavily affecting everything. It was the very first attempt I had to take my vision, work through it. And you find the right things by trying the wrong things, you know, a lot of times. Yeah. And then magic happens, like abracadabra. All of a sudden you try the right thing, and all of a sudden the planets align. And it's like, oh, I see this whole thing, and that leads you to the other things. You never get to that position, or you never get that situation, you know, involved with you know, somebody else who has a lot to do with the output or the presentation of what you're doing. There's so many other elements involved that we're not involved in this, and this was my first effort at it, and I do believe that what a valiant effort it was, where I listened to it and still I'm not sick of it. I'm still like, that was a really great, and how cool is that for you to think and be such a fan of it, but then realize that's me. How cool is that?
That's brilliant, isn't it? If you like it, then you know your fans are going to like it, and you know it's the best you can do at the time, and that's what you're aiming for, isn't it? So that's brilliant.
I'm my biggest critic. I'm very hard on myself, and you can tell that by the evolution, the evolving of my songwriting, and you know, my character that I play, and the vocals and things like that. You know, and I'm very hard on myself. I raise the bar each time, and it's still I'm able to get over it, you know, to make it over the bar. And so I'm going to continue to do that. And I believe, I've always said that once I can't make it over that bar, I've raised it, I've gotten so far that I can't get over that bar, then that means you're on your way down. Yeah. And I've got enough material to get me through then. I'm not going to be one of those artists that just releasing shit that just for the sake of releasing a new record. You know what I mean? Still got more to say and still increasingly getting better.
Yeah, brilliant. And it sounds like you are, Donnie, so that's superb. Thank you very much. I know you've not felt well.
Thank you very much.
Well, you'll have to have a hot toddy before you go to bed tonight, and you'll feel a lot better tomorrow, hopefully. Bless you.
No, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah, that's out the window now. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. It's a very good thing. I don't have tomorrow morning to deal with.
Well, yes, exactly. We'll definitely have to do it again soon, Donnie.
Thank you. Once I get over there, we'll have a cup of tea and a spotted dick.
Oh, yes, definitely. Sticky toffee pudding. Oh, bless you. You take care. You feel better soon.
Thanks,
See
Kat.
ya.
Thank you very much for thinking of me. I hope it's good.
No, it was brilliant. Thank you very much, Donnie. Speak soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Cat Tales. To listen again to this and other tales, go to cattales.co.uk.